If you're young, ambitious, and feel like everyone else is getting ahead while you're standing still, this video is for you. Because despite what social media tells you, most people never become financially free. Not because they're stupid, not because they lack talent, and not because they were unlucky. Most people stay stuck because they never escape the first stage. A stage so comfortable and so common that millions of people spend their entire lives there without realizing it. But before we get into that, let's clear something up. Society has a strange relationship with money. The moment you say you want to become wealthy, people start acting uncomfortable. They'll tell you money isn't important. Money won't make you happy. You should just be grateful for what you have. And while it's true that money doesn't solve every problem, it does solve many of the problems that cause stress in the first place. Money gives you options. Money gives you freedom. Money gives you control over your time. And most importantly, money gives you the ability to make decisions based on what you want instead of what you can afford. There's nothing wrong with wanting that. The problem is that most people want financial freedom while continuing to live exactly like everyone else. And that's where things fall apart. Because if you want uncommon results, you usually need uncommon behavior. That's why every wealthy person goes through 5 stages. Some move through them quickly. Others take years. But almost everyone who builds meaningful wealth follows a version of the same journey. And it starts with stage 1, drifting. This is where most people live. Drifting doesn't mean you're lazy. It doesn't mean you're a failure. It simply means you're reacting to life instead of directing it. You take the opportunities that appear in front of you. You follow the path that seems normal. You do what everyone else is doing. School, job, weekend, repeat. Then one day turns into 1 year. 1 year turns into 5. And suddenly you're wondering where the time went. The dangerous thing about drifting is that it feels productive. You're busy. You're working. You're paying bills. You're doing what society expects. But being busy and moving forward aren't always the same thing. Imagine getting into a taxi and telling the driver, just start driving. No destination, no plan, no direction. You'd probably end up somewhere. But it likely wouldn't be where you actually wanted to go. That's exactly how many people live. They hope life will somehow work itself out. They hope an opportunity appears. They hope a promotion fixes everything. They hope things eventually improve. Hope is not a strategy, and that's why drifting keeps people stuck. The truth is that nobody is coming to save you. Nobody wakes up every morning thinking about your goals. Nobody cares about your future more than you do, which means the responsibility is yours. The good news? That's also your advantage, because the moment you stop drifting, everything changes. One decision can completely alter the direction of your life, not the outcome, the direction. And direction matters far more than speed. This brings us to stage 2, commitment. Most people think they want wealth, but wanting something and committing to it are completely different things. Everybody wants success. Everybody wants freedom. Everybody wants more money. But very few people are willing to make the sacrifices required to get those things. They want to start a business, and learn a new language, and become a fitness influencer, and master investing, and build a personal brand, and travel the world, and somehow do all of it at the same time. The problem is that focus gets divided, energy gets divided, progress gets divided. Think about a magnifying glass. When sunlight is scattered, nothing happens. But when all that energy is focused into one point, it becomes powerful enough to start a fire. Success works the same way. The people who achieve extraordinary results are often not the most talented people in the room. They're simply the most focused. For a period of time, they become obsessed with one goal. Not forever, just long enough to create momentum. This is where many people make a mistake. They underestimate what can happen when you focus on one thing for several years. In today's world, distraction is everywhere. Notifications, short videos, trending opportunities, new business models, new side hustles. Every week, someone is telling you there's an easier way to make money. One day it's crypto. The next day it's dropshipping. Then AI automation. Then something else. People spend years jumping between opportunities without ever becoming great at any of them. Meanwhile, someone else chooses one path and sticks with it. 3 years later, the difference is massive. Not because they were smarter, because they stayed focused long enough for their efforts to compound. And that's what commitment really is. It's choosing a direction and continuing even after the excitement disappears. Because excitement is temporary. Commitment is what remains after motivation leaves the room. Once you've stopped drifting and committed to a direction, the next challenge becomes figuring out what path is actually worth following. And that's where stage 3 begins. Stage 3 is discovery. This is where most people get stuck. Not because they aren't capable, because they don't know what path to take. Everywhere you look, someone is selling a different dream. Start a YouTube channel. Become a freelancer. launch a business, learn AI, trade stocks, build an app, create content, invest in crypto. After a while, the number of options becomes overwhelming. And when people become overwhelmed, they often do nothing. The reality is much simpler than most people think. You don't need a revolutionary idea. You don't need to invent the next Facebook. You don't need to discover some secret business model nobody else knows about. You simply need a proven pathway. Look around you. Thousands of people are already making money through skills and businesses that are publicly visible. The evidence is everywhere. The question isn't, what should I invent? The question is, what is already working and how can I learn it? This is one of the biggest mindset shifts that separates successful people from everyone else. Instead of guessing, they study. Instead of assuming, they observe. Instead of trying to reinvent the wheel, they learn from people who already built one. Think about any successful person you've ever met. A business owner, a content creator, a salesperson, a software developer, a marketer. None of them started as experts. At one point, they were beginners trying to figure things out just like everyone else. The difference is that they found a pathway and followed it long enough to understand how it worked. That's why one of the fastest ways to accelerate your progress is to find someone who already has the result you want. Not because you should copy their life, but because success leaves clues. If someone has already achieved what you're trying to achieve, chances are they know things you don't. And learning from those people can save years of mistakes. This is where skills become important, because skills create value, and value creates income. In today's economy, some of the highest value skills aren't physical. They're digital, sales, marketing, video editing, content creation, AI implementation, business development, communication, negotiation. The specific skill matters less than people think. What's more important is becoming genuinely good at something people are willing to pay for. Because once you become valuable, opportunities start finding you, not the other way around. The mistake most people make is chasing money directly. The smarter approach is chasing value. Become valuable enough and money naturally follows. Once you've found a pathway and started building skills, you enter stage 4, acceleration. This is where things finally become real. Because until this point, everything was theory, ideas, planning, learning, research. Now it's time to execute. And this is where many people get their first reality check. The business doesn't grow instantly. The content doesn't go viral. The clients don't appear overnight. The money doesn't flood into your bank account. Instead, you make mistakes. Lots of them. And that's completely normal. Every successful person you admire has a collection of embarrassing first attempts hidden somewhere. The first video was terrible. The first sales call was awkward. The first business idea failed. The first product didn't sell. The first website looked awful. The difference is that successful people didn't treat failure as evidence they should quit. They treated it as feedback. And feedback is one of the most valuable resources you'll ever receive. Most people avoid criticism because it hurts their ego. But criticism is often the fastest route to improvement. Imagine trying to learn basketball while refusing to look at the scoreboard, or trying to lose weight without ever checking your progress. Improvement requires feedback. Business requires feedback. Success requires feedback. The problem is that many people only ask family and friends for advice, and family and friends usually want to protect your feelings. That's understandable. But it doesn't always help you improve. Real growth happens when you receive honest feedback from people who actually understand the thing you're trying to master. People who have already solved the problems you're currently facing. People who can point out blind spots you can't see yourself. This process isn't glamorous. In fact, it can be incredibly frustrating. Because progress rarely looks like progress in the beginning. For months, sometimes years, it feels like you're putting in effort without getting much back. And this creates what I call the lonely chapter. Almost everyone who becomes successful experiences it. You've outgrown your old habits. You've outgrown many of your old distractions. Sometimes you've even outgrown certain friendships. But you haven't yet reached the level you're aiming for. You're stuck in the middle, no longer where you started, not yet where you want to be. And honestly, this is where most people quit. Because nobody celebrates the lonely chapter. Nobody posts it on Instagram. Nobody talks about the nights spent learning, the weekends sacrificed, the opportunities missed, the uncertainty, the self-doubt. Everyone talks about success. Very few people talk about the years spent earning it. But if you can survive this stage, everything starts changing. Because skills compound, experience compounds, confidence compounds, results compound. And eventually, the effort that once seemed invisible starts producing visible outcomes. And that's when you enter the final stage, freedom. Stage 5 is freedom. This is the stage everyone talks about. The lifestyle, the money, the flexibility, the ability to wake up and decide how you want to spend your day. But here's the mistake most people make. They think freedom is the destination. It's not. Freedom is simply the reward for everything that came before it. The problem is that many people finally start making money and immediately begin spending it. A bigger apartment, a nicer car, designer clothes, luxury vacations, the latest gadgets. And before they know it, they've created a new version of the same problem they were trying to escape. Their income increased, but so did their lifestyle. So despite earning more money than ever before, they still feel trapped. This is called lifestyle inflation. And it's one of the biggest reasons people never become truly wealthy. Because making money and keeping money are two completely different skills. A lot of people become rich. Very few become wealthy. Rich means you earn a lot. Wealthy means you own a lot. There's a difference. Someone earning $300,000 a year but spending $290,000 isn't wealthy. Someone earning $100,000 while consistently investing and building assets may be far closer to financial freedom. This is why the most important investment you'll ever make isn't a stock. It isn't crypto. It isn't real estate. It's yourself. Because you're the engine that creates everything else. Skills are assets. Knowledge is an asset. Experience is an asset. Your ability to solve problems is an asset. And unlike money, nobody can take those things away from you. Think about it. If you lost everything tomorrow, what would happen? Most people would panic. But someone with valuable skills knows they can rebuild. Because they understand something most people don't. Money is usually a byproduct of value. Create enough value and money eventually follows. That's why the smartest people never stop learning, even after they become successful. They read, they study, they experiment, they improve, because they know the moment they stop growing is the moment they start falling behind. Now let's go back to the beginning of this video. Remember stage one? Drifting. The place where most people spend their entire lives. That's because drifting is comfortable. It doesn't require difficult decisions. It doesn't require risk. It doesn't require responsibility. You simply follow the path everyone else is following. And if you're lucky, maybe things work out. But that's not how wealth is built. Nobody accidentally becomes financially free. Nobody accidentally builds a business. Nobody accidentally develops valuable skills. Nobody accidentally creates a life they truly want. Those things happen through intentional action, through focus, through learning, through persistence, and most importantly, through time. Because the truth is that wealth isn't usually built in one moment. It's built through thousands of decisions, small decisions, often boring decisions. Decisions that don't seem important at the time. Choosing to learn instead of scroll. Choosing to invest instead of spend. Choosing to improve instead of complain. Choosing responsibility instead of excuses. Choosing long-term rewards over short-term comfort. Individually, those decisions feel insignificant, but together, they completely change the direction of your life. And that's really what these 5 stages are. A roadmap, not a guarantee. Not a shortcut, not a magic formula, a roadmap. Some people move through these stages quickly. Others take years. Some move forward, then backwards. Some get stuck for a while before continuing. That's normal. The important thing is that you keep moving, because every year you spend drifting is a year you'll never get back. Every year you spend learning compounds. Every year you spend building compounds. Every year you spend improving compounds. And that's why the younger you start, the more powerful this process becomes. Not because you're young, but because time is the most valuable asset you'll ever own. Money can be lost and earned again. Skills can be learned. Businesses can be rebuilt. But time only moves in one direction. That's why the biggest risk isn't failing. The biggest risk is spending years standing still. So ask yourself one question. Which stage are you currently in? Are you drifting? Have you committed? Are you discovering valuable skills? Are you in the lonely chapter of acceleration? Or have you reached a level of freedom that most people only dream about? Be honest with yourself. Because the answer to that question will tell you exactly what you need to focus on next. And remember this, the goal isn't to become rich so you can impress strangers. The goal is to build enough freedom that you can live life on your own terms. Because at the end of the day, that's what wealth really is. Not money, not status, not luxury, freedom. And the people who achieve it aren't usually the smartest. They aren't the luckiest. They simply spent enough years making decisions that most people weren't willing to make. While everyone else was waiting for life to change, they were busy changing it themselves. And that's the difference between those who dream about freedom and those who eventually achieve it.